Hello guys, welcome to my channel. In today's video we are going to be replicating this very simple animating web header section that I found on Dribble. By now you guys already know how much I like interactions and animations, and I'm always really excited to have an opportunity to share that with you guys. So this is the final design. As you can see, the moving images on the right and the elements slide in and scale up as you reload the page. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you get notified of my next video. And without further ado, let's get started with the video. Here I already created a redesigned version of the header section, and which basically has 5 groups of elements, which is this image part that has like 4 images, rounded images in them, and the vector arrow that is shown here. I'm just going to go ahead to rename these individual sections so that we can properly identify them. I will end up uploading this as an open source in the Figma community, so you can use it if you need to take any of the assets. So I'm just going to rename this last layer to the nav bar. Now I'm done renaming all layers. We can see everything is looking nice and neat. So the first thing we want to work on is this image section on the right here. As you can see in the Dribble sample, the images just scale up and you can see they move up and down just like the way you see here. And to achieve that, I'm just going to select the entire section and I'm going to create a duplicate by holding Alt and dragging out. So for this duplicate, we are going to make it a component because we want to interact between different versions of it. I'm also going to create another variant, and I'm going to create 2 more variants. So it's going to be a total of 4 variants in our component set. Now we need to create the state for our very first variant. So basically what happens is that the images scale up and they fade in. So for the first image, I'm just going to select it. I'm also going to hit K on the keyboard, and I'm going to come to the edge of the image, hold Shift and Alt at the same time, and drag it in to reduce the size of the image. I'm going to reduce it to as low as 1, 2 or 3 pixels, and I'm also going to flip it just to create a spinning transition when it's scaling up. You don't really have to do this. If you've scaled it down to 1 or 2 pixels, that is perfectly fine. So I'm going to repeat the same thing for the second image. I'm going to hit K on the keyboard, hold Shift and Alt at the same time. Then I'm going to click and drag it in from the edge to reduce the size. You can reduce it to either 1, 2 or 3 pixels depending on how little you can see. I'm also going to do the same thing for the third image, and I am holding Shift and Alt because I want it to scale down but still retain its initial position. So if you just reduce the image, normally it's just going to take the image to a different position, and when scaling it up, it won't look exactly the way it was. Although you can also do it the way you want. You can try out different things with the knowledge you have and get different interesting and exciting effects. So after I'm done reducing all the size of the images in this particular section, the next thing I would want to do is to reduce the opacity. So I'm going to select the entire section and I'm going to head over to the panel on the right, and I'm going to reduce the pass through to 0 so that it fades in while we are transitioning from the first to the second variant. So now we have our states of the first variant set. I'm going to switch to the prototype mode. I'm going to hit V on the keyboard to revert the K we hit initially. Then I'm going to connect the wires from the first variant to the second variant. It's going to be an after delay of 0 millisecond, which is 1, and I'm going to set it to a smart animate of 2000 millisecond for the smart animation. Now we have our transition from the first variant to the second variant. We want to transition from the second variant to the third variant, but here we want to create a different state on the third variant. But this transition is going to be an after delay 0 millisecond and a smart animate of 2000 millisecond. Now we want to create the states of the third variant. I'm going to select these two small images here and I'm going to move them down. So I'm just going to tap the arrow key down until I am satisfied with the positioning of the small images. It's not going to be too much, but I'm just going to move them a little bit downward. Then I'm going to select the two large images and I'm also going to move this up, so that once the small images are coming down, the large images are going up. So it feels like an opposite motion kind of thing. So once you're done with the transition with the third variant, remember we did not do any transition on the second variant. We're going to prototype and connect the wires down to the fourth variant, which is going to be the same thing after delay 0 second. And with the same 2000 millisecond for the smart animate. I'm going to return the favor and it's going to still be the same after delay 0 millisecond and the smart animate of 2000 millisecond. Remember, we didn't do anything on the second and the fourth variant. We are going to be using the default states that we have there. So now we can replace this image section we have on our header with the component we just created. But first I'm going to create a duplicate so that if we mess things up with the first one, we can always get our assets from the duplicate. I'm going to copy the component we just created. Then I'm going to right click on the image section of our header and select paste to replace, which replaces the section with our component that we just created. Now we can select our header section, our web header section, and put the starting flow on it. Then click the prototype button to preview our prototype. And this is it, guys. Okay, our initial transition is too slow. That means the milliseconds are too much, but the images are moving up and down just the way we want it. So we might want to make a little adjustment so that we can achieve the exact feel we are looking for. Now back in our components, I'm going to click on the prototype wires and edit the millisecond to 1000 millisecond so that the scaling up will be much faster. Okay, I think this is okay. The transition isn't so smooth. I'm guessing it's because of my screen recorder that is on currently. I'm sure yours will be a lot smoother than this. So the next section we are going to be working on is this header text right here. I'm just going to hold Alt. I'm going to click and drag out to duplicate the section. So for this section, I'm going to switch to the design panel and I'm going to take note of the width and height of the entire frame. I'm then going to select a rectangle and I'm going to draw a rectangle just right next to the header text. I'm going to make sure the rectangle has the same width and height of the header text frame, right? And then I'm going to place the texts in front of the rectangle and I'm going to position them together. So I'm going to just try to center the text within the box of the rectangle and make sure it fits perfectly. I'm then going to select both right click and use as mask. Now we have our header text as a mask. I'm going to quickly rename the entire section from mask group to something more relatable, and then I'm going to make it a component, because we can only create interactions on it better when it's a component. I'm also going to create a variant for that component, and I'm going to edit the state of the default variant. So I'm going to select the header text content in the default variant, and I'm going to use the arrow key to move its content to the left. I'm going to move all the content all the way to the left until I can't see any of them anymore, because we want to create a transition effect where the contents move in from left to right until it's all visible. So now, once we've hidden all the contents, I'm going to switch to the prototype mode, and I'm going to connect the wires from the first variant to the second variant. It's going to be an after delay of 0 millisecond, and I'm going to set a smart animate, and I'm going to leave it at 1000 millisecond. So now we are done with this header section component. I'm just going to copy it. I'm just going to duplicate the component, and I'm going to cut it. Then I'm going to go to that exact section, and I'm going to right click and paste to replace. And this is the reason why I marked this section with the exact width and height, so that paste to replace will paste it in the exact position. Now in our prototype, we can see the transition of the header text and our image section. I think this looks nice. I like the way it's coming out. So we can return to our board and focus on what's next. I'm just going to reposition this header section components to the far right, so that we can have enough space to work with the second or the third section. So the third section we're going to be working with is this little dates and destination picker here. I'm just going to frame the entire selection. It's currently a frame, but it's an auto layout frame, so I'm just going to frame the entire selection with a regular frame, and I'm going to quickly rename that entire frame. When I'm done, I'm going to hold Alt, click and drag to create a duplicate that we're going to be working with. Then I'm going to make this a component as usual, just the way we've been doing with others. Then I'm going to select the contents of the first one, and this is why I created that frame, so that we can target the content inside the frame rather than the entire variant itself. Now we are going to have to scale the content inside our default frame, which is this, and as usual, I'm going to hit K on the keyboard, hold Shift and Alt, and I'm going to click and drag in to reduce the size and to make sure it's in the same position while I scale it down. This won't be too small. I think this is okay. I'm just going to reduce the size to this, and I'm going to click on the first, and I'm going to connect the wires. I'm going to prototype it from the first variant, the reduced one, to the regular variant, which is the second variant. So you can see I can't use this, but I'm going to revert it by clicking V on the keyboard, because we've hit K on the keyboard initially. I'm going to revert it by hitting V, then I'm going to connect the wires to the second variant. I'm going to use an after delay 0 millisecond, and I'm going to leave the smart animate at 1000 millisecond. Once I am done, I'm going to click to copy an instance of this component, and I'm going to come to this section, right click and paste to replace. Now we are going to have our instance of our components here with this very tiny scaled section. So we can check out our prototype as usual. I'm going to hit R to restart the prototype, and as you can see, this is also coming out really nice. So the next thing we are going to work on is this little vector arrow here, and we are basically going to be doing the same thing we've been doing for others. But first, I'm going to reposition these components we just worked on to the far right, so that we have enough space to work with the second with the fourth element. On this, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to right click and I'm going to frame the selection, and I'm doing this because I want to be able to target the contents of the variant. But if I just create a component or a variant on this, I won't be able to target the contents because it's going to be the variant itself. I hope you understand. So here I'm going to click on the vector in the default variant, and I'm going to do the same thing we'll be doing. Hit K on the keyboard, hold down Shift and Alt, then click to scale down and retain the current position. You might want to be careful. You won't like the arrow to flip, just to scale it down as small as possible, because if it flips like this, it won't be nice. It's going to be weird. So you're just going to leave it at this particular position. And I'm going to set the opacity, which is the pass through, to 0 so that it fades in also. Once I'm done, I'm going to copy this section. Before that, I'm going to connect the wires. I'm going to hit V to revert the K we hit on the keyboard, and I'm going to connect the wires for prototype. Make it an after delay 0 millisecond, and I'm going to leave the smart animate to 1000 millisecond. I'm going to create an instance, cut it, right click on the actual section and paste to replace. Now we can see our board is almost looking empty, but that's fine. Once we click on the prototype section, we should get our designs. I'm going to hit R to restart the prototype, and this is coming out okay, but I think the arrow is slow, so I'm going to reduce the millisecond so as to increase the speed of its display. So I'm going to just select that field and make it 500 milliseconds, and I hope this makes it a bit faster. Right, but it still looks a little bit slow, but that's fine. You can always use the figures of your choice and play around with it till you get the perfect one that fits your designs. This might not be what you're trying to achieve, but whatever it is, I'm sure you know your way around it. Okay, now we're done with the arrow section. I'm going to move it out of the way so that we have enough space to work with our final section, which is the navigation bar. So for the navigation bar, we want to do almost the same thing we did for the header section. We are going to put it in a mask. So before that, I'm going to just create a duplicate. I'm going to select it. I'm going to click on it, hold Alt, click and drag so that we create a duplicate that we can use. As you can see, this is currently an auto layout navigation bar. It's completely made with auto layout, but what I want to do is take note of the height and width of the navigation bar, just the way we did for the header section. As you can see, this is 1440 by I think 80. So I'm just going to create a rectangle, and I'm going to use the same exact figures for the rectangle. Once I've done that, I'm going to make sure I place the layer of the navigation bar on top of the rectangle image. So I'm going to cut the navigation bar. I'm going to select the rectangle, then paste it so that I make sure that the layer is on top of the rectangle. I'm going to select both, and I'm going to use the align center, both vertical and horizontal align center, to make sure they are both aligned. Then I'm going to use as mask, just the way we did for the header section, if you remember. So from here, I'm just going to rename this navigation bar quickly, so that we can identify it. Then I'm going to select the entire mask and make it a component. I'm also going to create a variant. Now we have two variants in our component set. So basically what we want to do is hide the visibility of the first variant, then use after delay to show the second one. So I'm going to select the auto layout nav bar in the first variant and move it to the top with arrow key. Then I'm going to select the first variant. I'm going to switch to the prototype mode, and I'm going to connect the wires all down to the second variant. It's going to be an after delay as usual, 0 millisecond, but I want the nav bar to delay a little bit, so I'm going to be using 2000 millisecond for the Smart Animate. Then I'm going to copy our navigation bar component. I'm going to copy it, cut it, then select the existing one, right click and paste to replace. Now we have all our components prototyped, and we can see the complete prototype. Now I'm going to hit R to restart the prototype, and as you can see, oh okay, the navigation bar is really slow and I don't like that. So I'm going to go back to the board and speed it up a little bit by reducing the millisecond time. So I'm going to select it, switch to the prototype so we can see the wires, then select it to edit. I'm going to reduce it from 2000 milliseconds to 1000 milliseconds. And I'm going to play our prototype again. I think this is fine. This is fine. I'm just going to make it an easy in and out and back, so that it creates a little bounce effect. I don't know why the prototype is extremely slow at the moment, but usually this is not the kind of speed you get for these numbers, and I'm guessing again it's because I'm screen recording at the moment and I think my machine is a little slow. So guys, this is it. I think we've completely created the animations on our landing page. This is it, guys. Let's just look at the prototype one more time. So this is it, guys. This is what the final product looks like. Just like I've said, the transition can be a lot smoother on your machine, and this is not completely detailed like the one I saw on Dribble or like the one I showed you guys on Dribble, but I hope this gives you an idea of how to achieve something like this on Figma. I hope you've learned something, and I hope you enjoyed watching the video. And if you've watched this till the end, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I am going to see you in my next video.